Hello everyone, Jamie Phillips here, and welcome back to the Azure Advent Calendar. Today we're going to cover Azure Image Builder. This is Microsoft's answer to building virtual machine images in Azure. Azure Image Builder is based off of HashiCorp Packer. It leverages that underneath. And if you're not needing to support multi-cloud and you are already in the Azure ecosystem, then I would highly recommend that this is the tool that you use. There's really two advantages over Packer that this tool offers. The first one is that the deprovisioning step, so this is removing user accounts and user data along with host name information, is already baked into the tool. So that's not a step that you have to remember to add, which is an issue I run into when using Packer is I always forget to add that step. So I always end up with an image that I have to go back and tweak and fix. So that's already included. And the other big advantage is Windows restarts. So if you're doing updates on a Windows server or installing software that requires a restart of the system, Microsoft provides a built-in tool for that in Azure Image Builder. Whereas with Packer, you have to rely on third-party extensions or plugins, or you have to do some weird gymnastics. That's a sore point for me that really hasn't improved a lot. But I don't count that as an issue with Packer. It's more of an issue with Windows. So with those things out of the way, we're going to move on to talking about why you would want to use Azure Image Builder. Azure Image Builder really has two big use cases, actually any tool where you pre-build images. Virtual machine skill sets are a good use case for using an image builder or a pre-built image. When you're provisioning virtual machine skill sets, time is of the essence when you're trying to add a node or a virtual machine to that set, right? So you're auto scaling. And when you're installing software as part of the provisioning, that takes time. So if your installation and configuration takes 10 minutes, then that's 10 minutes longer you're going to have to wait before you can actually start serving requests with that added virtual machine. So if you pre-build your images with, say, Azure Image Builder, that 10 minutes can be saved or greatly reduced so you can start adding capacity to your skill set faster. Another use case for an image builder would be for the Azure Marketplace. So say you're providing an appliance or trial software and you need to keep that up to date with your software releases. You can set that up as part of your CI/CD solution, and then you can be building those images as part of your release process. So that's always up to date. And then you can just publish those images to the marketplace. In both of those scenarios, operating system updates come into play, especially when you're concerned about security and always being up to date on your patches. Another thing with the image builder in both of those use cases is you can make that as part of the process. So you can do that on every release, or you can do that on a monthly basis. And you always know that you have a fresh image and it's traceable. So with that out of the way, so we talked about what it is, we talked about why you'd want to use it. So now let's jump into doing our demo. Okay, so the first step in using Azure Image Builder is we need to make sure that we have this enabled in our subscription. So if you focus down here on the terminal, we're going to make sure that we have the virtual machine images, the virtual machine template preview enabled in our subscription. And you can see that we do in fact have it registered. So that's a good start. Now the next step is going to be to define some environment variables. So I'm going to paste this here in the screen up above, and you can see that we're going to define 5 environment variables. We're going to define our image resource group. So this is the resource group we're going to store our image in. We're going to define our location. For this example, I'm using East US. We're going to grab our subscription ID from the Azure CLI, and we're going to give our image a name, and we're going to have our output name. So we're going to call our image K8's base, and we're going to output that to K8's. K8 stands for Kubernetes. So what we're going to build here is a virtual machine image with the Kubernetes and Docker tools already pre-installed. I've been studying for my Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam, and I've been building out Kubernetes clusters, and this is just a repetitive step that I would like to automate so I can get to doing what I need to study faster. So we can just take this set of commands here and we can execute this in our terminal. And now we have those set. The next step in this process is we need to create a resource group. So we're going to leverage our environment variables to create a resource group in our location. And that looks like that's been completed. Now that we've created a resource group, what we have to do is we have to assign the image builder account a role to our resource group. So the role is going to be a contributor. So if we show this up here, you can see that we're going to assign this GUID, which happens to be the Azure Image Builder, the role of contributor, and we're going to scope it to our resource group we just created. That way we don't have to worry about having too much permissions on our subscription. Let me clear this here so we can start. We're going to execute this. Okay, it now has permissions in our resource group. Now we need to start talking about our template. So if you follow along in the blog post, the template's located there. There's also a link to a GitHub page with the template. So I'm going to open up the template. Let me make this a little smaller here. We'll start up at the top. If you're familiar with Azure Resource Manager, this should look very familiar. So we have our type here, which is an image template. We have our location, which is just a token that we're going to replace here in a minute. We're tagging it with some tags here. For this same example, we're starting with Ubuntu 18.04 as our base virtual machine image. Build timeout in minutes is an important property. If you're doing a lot of installs on Windows systems and you're doing a lot of operating system updates, those can take a while. So you might have to adjust that based on what you're actually installing and doing. 80 minutes should be way more than I need here. I could probably do it in 20. It's important to set this not to a high value, because if it runs longer than that time, say the process gets hung up, you don't want to be billed for that, right? So set that for what you think is a reasonable amount of time. Maybe go a little bit larger than you think, and then scale it up and down based on your needs. The VM profile here, the VM size, standard D1 V2, that's going to be plenty fast enough. I could probably use something smaller. The interesting thing about this is virtual machine size does have an impact on your network throughput. So if you're doing a large install or a set of large updates, so let's say Windows Server, who has 2 or 3 gigs worth of Windows updates sometimes from the Azure images, you might want to go up in a virtual machine size because it'll run longer with the smaller virtual machine. Or if you go up a size, your networking throughput sometimes gets better, which means that you'll spend less time and probably end up spending less money. So it's just something to be aware of. Here, the source, this is important. You'll need to query the region using the Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell to get a list of images, versions that you can use. Here you can see that I'm using this version of Ubuntu from December 5th. Pretty sure that's how that reads. So the SKU here is 1804 LTS, so I'm using the long-term support version of Ubuntu. And then this version here needs to be specific. There is a latest that you'll see show up. You can't use that. So latest isn't supported as the version right now. You have to use a specific version. It would be really cool in the future if latest is supported, because that will make your CI/CD always grab the newest that's available. Version versus you getting stuck on an older one and forgetting to update it, and then you're applying more updates every time, right? And now we're getting to the bread and butter or the meat and potatoes of our image builder here, and that's the customize section. So this is where we're going to execute commands on our virtual machine to prepare it for software install, configuration, etc. So you can see here, my first step. Now this could all be one step with multiple just inline comments. These can be script files. I like to break mine out and keep them small, so it's easier to make small tweaks and changes when you're doing auditing and stuff in version control. So I'm going to update the image. So I want to grab some updates in the from the repositories. So that's all fresh references. And then I'm going to install a couple of tools that I know I'm going to need, the big one being curl. And then I get down here to my next step, which is another shell type. And this is adding the Kubernetes repo. So you can see here I'm pulling the GPG key, which is the key that says this is a valid repository. So you're being secure. And I'm going to write out this to my sources list. So I have the repo as part of the sources, and then I'm going to add the Docker repo. So very similar. I'm going to pull the GPG key, I'm going to add it to the list of repositories, and then I'm going to actually start my software install. So here in this step, it's install Kubernetes libs. I'm going to refresh my package repository again with the update command. So this is going to pull in references to all the repositories I just added. And then I'm actually going to install specific versions of the software right here. So you can see that I'm installing Docker Community Edition 18.06.1. I'm installing Kubelet, kubeadm, and kubectl. And then I'm going to run apt-mark hold, which this pins the versions of these softwares so they don't upgrade automatically. And that's kind of important when you have version dependencies and you're installing these, is to always do that. And when you generalize the image, this does stick. So this will actually go forward with any virtual machines you create from the image. And then the last step here is I'm defining how I want to distribute this. And I'm going to distribute this as a managed image. You can do other types. I think a VHD is an option, if I'm remembering. I always stick to managed images. There's times and places to use other ones. That seems to work best for me. And then I'm just going to tag it with some information. So this is what our template looks like. And you can see here we have nothing specific in here, right? Like regions just got these placeholders. So the next step for us to do is to replace the placeholders with actual information. So we are going to run the following command, which is going to go look for these strings, and it's going to replace our tokens or placeholders with actual values. So we can just take and run this right here in our terminal. And now that's been updated. And here's one odd behavior compared to if you're used to using Packer. Packer, you can just execute it and run it. With Azure Image Builder, you need to upload your template first to your resource group. So the command for that is going to be down here in the terminal. So we're going to create a resource in our resource group, and it's going to have the properties of our JSON file, and it's going to be of type image template. And we're going to give it a name. This can take a few minutes once it's ran, once this command's done executing to propagate and to get wired up. So we'll just need to pause for about 4 to 5 minutes before we continue. So what I will do once this is done running is I will pause the video. I will wait 5 minutes and I will catch back up with you in the future. Okay, we're back. It's been 5 minutes. The next step is we need to invoke our template. So we're going to use an invoke action command with run. And this will kick off, and this will take about 15 minutes to finish executing. So I will catch back up with you when this is finished. Okay, you can see that we are now done. So with all good things, we need to test this image. So we have an image built. We need to spin us up a virtual machine to test the image out. So we'll do that right now. You see here, we're running the create command, giving it a name K8's node 1, using Azure Image Builder user for our username. We're going to use our image we just created, and we're going to generate some SSH keys so we can log in and test it. Here we go. I will be back when this is finished. Okay, we're back. Our virtual machine has been created, so let's give ourselves a little bit more room here in our window so you can see what's going on. Okay, we're going to SSH in as our user. We're going to grab the public IPs that were given to the virtual machine using the Azure CLI. Yes, we're going to trust it. And you can see we're on the server. So we're logged into a virtual machine created from our image we just built. So now we need to test to see that our software is installed. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to make sure that kubectl is installed. And you can see it is. Let's check to see if kubeadm is installed. And it is. Let's check to see if kubelet's installed. And that indeed is too. And the last thing we need to check is make sure that Docker is installed. And we can see that Docker is installed too. So with that, let's check one last thing. Let's check to make sure that our packages that we marked as being on hold are actually on hold. And you can see all 4 of them are actually on hold. So we can exit this machine. And now, as with any good demo or thing that you're doing, always clean up your resources. And that's what we're going to do. So while we're cleaning this up, I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Please provide me feedback. Reach out to me on social media. I'm PhillipsJ73 on Twitter. You can find me at my website, phillipsj.net. Please, any questions, any corrections, or anything you'd like to add, please reach out and let me know. Thank you.